I wake up every morning at 6 o'clock. The habit, developed over 42 years of judging, does not let go even now that I am 76. My joints pop with every movement. My back and left knee are the harbingers of rain. Over the years, my body has become a barometer of sorts, only not a very pleasant one. Wellington outside the window wakes up slowly. Gray morning, fine drizzle. Typical New Zealand winter. Dank, but no real cold. I get out of bed, pull on a robe, and head to the bathroom, trying not to squeak the floorboards. I know Nigel and Hazel sleep at the other end of the house, but old habits are ingrained. I've always respected other people's sleep. I look in the mirror. Edgar Burrows, 76, former judge of Wellington High Court. Wrinkles furrowed my face as if a map of all the decisions I'd made. My hair had thinned but still hadn't given up completely, stubbornly silver above my ears and on my temples. When I was young, it had been brown, like my Dorothy's. Dorothy. 3 years have passed, and I still look for her silhouette in the doorways, waiting to hear her voice. After she left, the house was empty. Nigel offered to move in with them, said he was worried about my health. Perhaps there was an element of sincerity in that. But I had no doubt that the house, a 4-bedroom mansion in a prime Wellington neighborhood that I'd promised him I'd leave him, played a major role. An only son, as it should be. I shave as carefully as I did 60 years ago, with a dangerous razor left by my father. My daily ritual, a small tribute to the past. Hazel once said it was a relic and hazing. I said she'd be a relic if she lived to be my age, with her habit of smoking in the backyard. She didn't speak to me for 3 days. I go down to the kitchen, put the kettle on. Here in this house, I now call my own, everything is a stranger. My mug is the only familiar object. It's dark blue, with a crack on the handle. Dorothy gave it to me for our 30th anniversary. A judge needs stability, she said then, even in the little things. I hear the bathroom door slam on the top floor, then Nigel's heavy footsteps on the stairs. My son. Sometimes I look at him and don't recognize him. Where has that serious boy who wanted to change the world gone? Now I'm looking at a 45-year-old man with a beer belly and a permanent look of dissatisfaction on his face. Shamanturan. Good morning, I say when he appears in the kitchen. Morning, he mutters, heading for the coffee maker. Typical greeting. It's going to rain, I remark. My knee feels it. Nigel hums but doesn't say anything. He pours coffee into the filter, presses the button. The machine starts making noise, filling the awkward silence between us. Do you have a big day at work today? I ask, knowing that Nigel is doing some kind of remodeling project on an old building. The usual, he answers without turning his head. I see. I take a sip of my tea. How's that project at the center coming along? You said you were on a deadline. It's fine. Nigel pours his coffee into a large mug with his company logo on it. Don't go on about how important it is to meet deadlines and all that. I'm not a child anymore, Father. I'm just taking an interest, Nigel. It's normal to be interested in your own son's life. He sighs. Sorry, didn't sleep well. Hazel walks into the kitchen, already dressed for work. A tight skirt, a blouse, her hair in a neat bun. My sister-in-law always looks organized and businesslike. I admit that in this we are alike. Good morning, she said, speaking more to Nigel than to me. Good morning, I answer anyway. You look beautiful. Important meeting today. Just a normal day at the office, she replies, pulling a yogurt out of the fridge. How'd you sleep, Edgar? Typical for my age. Spent more time thinking than sleeping. Is it your knee again? Nigel asks with a hint of irritation. Why don't you see a doctor? I've spent 20 years listening to defendants lie to my face, Nigel. You think I'm going to believe a doctor who says he can fix old age? Hazel and Nigel exchange a look. It's a look I've seen many times over the past few months, a mixture of annoyance and something else, something that makes me feel uncomfortable. So, maybe you should see that specialist I told you about, Hazel suggests, stirring granola into her yogurt. Dr. Carmichael is great with joint problems in the elderly. Elderly, I chuckle, a delicate euphemism for old. Thank you, Hazel, but I prefer to manage on my own. I'm not the kind of old man who runs to the doctor with a list of ailments. You're unbearably stubborn, Nigel said, as always. It's called integrity, son. It's what made me a good judge. Something I've tried to teach you too. Nigel rolls his eyes. Don't start with your judging career again. Why? I set the mug down on the table a little harder than I intended. Are you ashamed of my career? 42 years in the service of justice is cause for pride, not eye-rolling. No one's arguing that, Edgar, Hazel interjected in a conciliatory tone that I hated. It's a tone you use with cranky children and senile old people. Anyway, it's just that it's early in the morning, and we're all a little out of sorts. I'm in a great mood, I reply. I just don't understand why my own son thinks I'm a burden. No one thinks you're a burden. Nigel gets up from the table. It's just that you're always dissatisfied, always criticizing. My whole life, no matter what I've done, you've never been satisfied. I stare at him, trying to find the words, but deep down I know he's right. I've always demanded more. Maybe too much. I wanted you to be the best, I say finally. That's what all parents want. No, you wanted me to be you. Nigel shakes his head. And I never wanted to be a judge. What did you want to be? A builder? I can't contain my sarcasm. Great dream. See? Nigel turns to Hazel. That's what I mean. Nothing I do will ever be good enough for His Honor Judge Burroughs. Boys, Hazel intervenes in a tone that must be considered peacemaking. Let's not start the day with a quarrel. Nigel, we should get going if we don't want to be late. Nigel nods, finishes his coffee, and leaves without even saying goodbye. Hazel lingers, rinsing her bowl. Edgar, she says quietly, I know this is hard for you. After Dorothy died, it's hard on all of us. But maybe you should be soften up a little. For Nigel, for yourself. I look at her, trying to see if she's sincere. Hazel's always been a mystery to me. Reserved, practical, with a cold, calculating look in her eyes. I never had much sympathy for her, but I respected her efficiency and organization. Until today. Soften, I repeated. Are you suggesting I change who I am in my 8th decade? I'm suggesting you try to find common ground with your son before it's too late. She glances at her watch. I have to go. I'll see you tonight. When they leave, the house falls into silence. I sit at the table staring out the window at the gray Wellington sky. Hazel's words roll around in my head. Before it's too late. What does she mean? That I'm going to die soon? Or something else? During the day, I do the usual things. I read the newspaper from cover to cover, take a short walk around the block despite the drizzle. I eat the soup I made yesterday. At 2 o'clock, I call an old colleague, Judge Morrison, to discuss the latest legal news. At 4, I turn on the TV and watch the news. When Nigel and Hazel come home from work, I sit in the living room with a book. They walk in together, talking quietly. They stop talking when they see me. Hi, I say. How was your day? Fine, Nigel says, taking off his coat. I notice that he avoids making eye contact with me. And yours? Not much. I called James Morrison. Remember him? He was asking about you. Yeah? Nigel's clearly not interested. What did you say? The truth? That you were restoring historic buildings and had found your calling. Nigel raises his eyebrows in surprise. Really? You said that. Why are you surprised? I close the book. I always tell the truth, even if it doesn't match your expectations of me. Hazel walks into the kitchen, leaving us alone. Nigel stands in the doorway, as if hesitant to enter the room fully. I've made soup, I say. It's on the stove if you want it. Thank you. Nigel pauses. Father, I've been meaning to ask. Hazel and I were thinking of going out of town this weekend, to Lake Taupo. We were thinking of asking you to come along. Get a change of scenery, get some fresh air. I look at him with suspicion. In 15 years of marriage to Hazel, they'd never invited me on a trip together, not even when Dorothy was alive. Why the sudden concern? We just thought it might be good for you to get away. You've hardly left the house since Mom died, except for your walks around the block. Hazel appears from the kitchen with a cup of tea. It was my idea, Edgar. I've read that it's important for people of age to have a change of scenery. New experiences are good for cognitive function. Age, I snort. Another euphemism. So what do you plan to do at the lake? Just relax. Nigel shrugs. Walking? Maybe fishing. You like fishing, don't you? I did, when I could sit on the shore for hours without back pain, I said. But it's not a bad idea. When do you plan to leave? Saturday morning, Hazel said, exchanging a quick glance with Nigel. We'll be back Sunday night. Just one night's lodging. That look, that look again. I've noticed those glances for months now. The quiet conversations that break off when I enter the room. At first I thought they were discussing some surprise for my birthday, but it passed in May and the strange behavior continues. Is there anything else I should know about? I ask bluntly. Like what? Nigel tenses up. Like why you're always whispering and shutting up when I'm around. What kind of secrets? Hazel puts the cup on the table. Edgar, we're just talking. About work. About everyday things. Not everything revolves around you. I didn't say it does. I asked why you're acting like a conspiracy. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Nigel waves his hands. You're always suspicious of everyone. You always think people are plotting something against you. That's paranoia, Father. Don't you dare use that tone with me. I stand up, ignoring the pain in my knee. I'm not one of your subordinates. I'm your father, and I deserve respect. Respect has to be earned, Nigel replies quietly. And it works both ways. What do you mean? I take a step toward him. You don't think I deserve your respect? After everything I've done for you? After raising you, educating you, putting a roof over your head? It's always the same, Nigel shakes his head. Always these reminders of your sacrifices, as if raising your own child was some incredible favor. Nigel, Hazel puts a hand on his shoulder. Let's not, no, he pulls away. I'm tired of this. All my life I've tried to live up to your standards, Father. To be the kind of son you could be proud of, but nothing was ever enough. I didn't go to law school. Disappointment. I chose architecture, a waste of time. I went into historic restoration, not serious. Even my choice of wife you questioned. I never said I disapproved of your marriage, I objected. You didn't have to say it. Your looks, your behavior, everything spoke for you. I look at Hazel. She's standing with her eyes down, as if she's afraid to meet my gaze. Is it true? I ask her. Do you think I disapproved of your marriage too? Edgar, she raises her eyes. I've always felt that I didn't fit your idea of a suitable wife for Nigel. I don't come from the kind of family you consider worthy. My father was a simple letter carrier, not a lawyer or a doctor. That's ridiculous, I shake my head. I've never judged people by their background, only by their actions and their character. And my character didn't suit you, she says with sudden bitterness. Only too practical, too calculating. That's what you once said to Dorothy. I heard it. I think back to that conversation with my wife. Did Hazel really hear it? It was shortly after they were married when I expressed doubts about Hazel's motives. Dorothy defended her then, said I was too harsh. I'm not going to apologize for my judgment, I say finally. Everyone's entitled to an opinion, and my opinion is based on observation and experience. Your opinion is based on prejudice, Nigel says. You've always believed that your way is the only right way. Your values are the only right ones. Your decisions are impeccable. Don't be silly, I've made mistakes like everyone else. But I've never admitted them. Nigel raises his voice. Even now, when I tell you how I've felt my whole life, you can't just say, I was wrong, or I'm sorry you felt that way. I stay silent. Part of me knows he's right, but the other part, the part that made me the judge, refuses to give in. This trip, I say, changing the subject, is it really for me? Or do you just have to go somewhere and I can't be left alone? Oh my God, Dad! Nigel throws up his hands in frustration. You see? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Even when we're trying to do something nice for you, you find a way to turn it into another accusation. It's just a trip, Edgar, Hazel says tiredly. There's no hidden agenda. Just a little vacation for all of us. I look at them both. Something doesn't add up, but I can't figure out what it is. Maybe years in court have made me too suspicious. Or maybe I just don't want to admit that my son is right. Okay, I say finally. Let's go to the lake. Maybe the fresh air will do us all some good. Nigel and Hazel exchange another one of those looks that drive me crazy. But this time I catch something new in it. Relief, determination. I'm not sure, but one thing's for sure. Something's wrong, and I'd better watch out. Saturday comes suddenly. I wake up with a sense of unease that hasn't left me since last night. I lie in bed listening to Nigel and Hazel packing for our trip behind the wall. Their voices are muffled, but I detect a strange tension in their intonations. Outside the window, it's a gray morning, typical of Wellington at this time of year. A light rain is drumming on the roof, gradually subsiding. Perhaps the weather will improve by the time we leave. I get up and start packing, methodically putting my things into the old leather valise that has accompanied me on my travels for the past 30 years. A warm sweater, spare pants, socks, medicine, a book, Dickens' Great Expectations. The irony of the choice doesn't escape me. Half an hour later, I'm downstairs for breakfast. Hazel is already in the kitchen, cooking something that smells like cinnamon and vanilla. I can't remember the last time she baked. "Good morning, Edgar," she says with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "How did you sleep?" "Not bad, thank you," I reply, taking a seat at the table. "What are you making?" "Cinnamon rolls. Your favorite, if I remember correctly. Dorothy always made them for Christmas." I nod, suddenly speechless. Yes, Dorothy used to bake scones like this every Christmas. But how does Hazel know they're my favorite? I never mentioned it. "That's very thoughtful of you," I finally say. She sets a plate with two still warm scones and a cup of coffee in front of me. "It's nothing special. I just thought I'd have a good breakfast before I traveled." Nigel enters the kitchen already dressed for the trip, phone in hand. "The forecast says it'll clear up by lunchtime," he announced, sitting down at the table. "If we leave in an hour, we'll be at the lake in good weather." "Sounds good." I take a bite of my bun. It's really good, almost like Dorothy's. "Kanonam, did you pack your fishing rods? You said you wanted to go fishing." Nigel and Hazel exchange a quick glance, which I've learned to notice. No," Nigel says. "I thought we'd just relax this time. Walk around, admire the view. Fishing might be too tiring for you." "Me?" I snort. "Boy, I was fishing when you weren't even in the project. But whatever, your trip." "Our trip," Hazel corrects me, "and we want you to be comfortable." I look at them both. Care? Attention? Cinnamon buns? Something is definitely wrong. In 30 years of judging, I've learned to recognize lies, and now all my instincts are screaming danger. After breakfast, we load into Nigel's car, a blue Subaru with a spacious trunk. I notice there isn't much stuff for an overnight trip. One gym bag, a thermos, a small picnic basket. No tent, no sleeping bags. "Where are we going to spend the night?" I ask, settling into the back seat. "Sumananam. Booked a small motel by the lake," Hazel replies, getting into the front passenger seat. "Nothing fancy, but it's comfortable." "A motel," I say again. "I thought we'd be camping. A real vacation in the great outdoors." "Sleeping on the ground isn't a good idea at your age, Dad," Nigel said, starting the car. "You'll be back for a week." "At my age," I chuckle. "You all say that, like I've got one foot in the grave." "No one thinks that," Hazel turns to me with a strained smile. "Shakunin on. We're just looking out for your comfort." The car starts, and we drive out of Wellington. The city is slowly being left behind, replaced by suburbs and then the countryside. Dorothy loved these hills, lush green even in winter. I stare out the window, remembering our trips, our conversations, how she laughed at my jokes, even the most ridiculous ones, how she covered my hand with hers when I got nervous while driving. "What are you thinking about?" Hazel's voice brought me back to reality. "Sidham, about Dorothy," I answered honestly. "We used to drive this road a lot." "You miss her," I say, not a question, but a statement. Every day, I look out the window. 47 years together is not just a marriage, it's a lifetime. When she left, half of me left with her. There's an awkward silence. Nigel's eyes are focused on the road, Hazel rubbing her seatbelt. I notice how tense their shoulders are. "Where exactly are we going?" I ask, breaking the silence. "You said Lake Taupo, but that's 3 or 4 hours away." "Yes," Nigel nods. "That's about right. But we're not on the main highway." I pointed to the sign outside the window. "It's a detour. We're taking the scenic route," Hazel explains without turning around. "Through Masterton and Palmerston North. Longer but prettier." I don't argue, even though I know this road will take at least 5 hours. An odd choice for a day trip. Very odd. An hour later, Nigel turns off the main road onto an even narrower and more winding one. The hills are getting higher, the vegetation thicker. We're definitely getting deeper into the countryside, getting further and further away from population centers. Nigel, are you sure we're going the right way? I asked, looking at the farmland floating by. This isn't the road to Taupo. Trust me, father. He glances in the rearview mirror. I check the route. After another half hour, the road becomes so narrow that two cars could barely fit together. On either side now stretches the forest. Dark, dense, a little ominous on a cloudy day. Is this definitely the road to Taupo? I don't hide my skepticism anymore. We thought we'd stop somewhere along the way, Hazel says, still not turning to me. Surprise. Surprise, I repeat. What kind of surprise can you find in the middle of nowhere? You'll see. Nigel grips the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turn white. Soon enough. I lean back in the seat, trying to fight the growing anxiety. Something's going on, something they're not telling me about. I replay the past weeks, months in my head, their whispers, the looks, the sudden pauses in conversation, the cinnamon buns this morning, this trip, this strange itinerary. The rain intensifies, drumming on the roof of the car. Outside the windows is now a solid wall of forest, interrupted only by sparse clearings. The navigator on the dashboard has long since lost its signal, but Nigel seems to know exactly where he's going. How much farther? I asked, checking my phone. There's not a single cell. No, Nigel answers. We're almost there. After a few minutes, the woods parted, revealing a small clearing. In the center is a two-story wooden building with peeling paint and a faded sign that reads, Forest Silence. What is it? I lean forward between the front seats. Some kind of abandoned motel? Not abandoned exactly, Hazel says. It's just, old. It's a local landmark, built in the 50s. What are we doing here? My anxiety's growing by the second. We need to pick up something for the picnic, Nigel explains, turning off the engine. An acquaintance left a basket of local delicacies, homemade honey, cheese, wine. A friend? I'm looking at a dreary building through the rain. Sabrishoranin, who do you know in this neck of the woods? A co-worker. Nigel unbuckles his seatbelt. His family have a farm nearby. Why couldn't we have bought all this stuff in town? I don't hide my suspicion. Because it's special honey, Hazel intervenes. A local specialty. You've never tasted it. They exchange another of those looks. My inner alarm bells are ringing louder and louder. I'll come with you, I say, grabbing the doorknob. Huh, no, they exclaimed almost simultaneously. And then Nigel added more calmly. You don't have to, Father. It's raining outside, and you and your knee don't want to get wet. Sit in the car, Hazel suggested with a strained smile. We'll be quick. Literally 5 minutes. I stare at them, trying to figure out what's going on. Nigel is tense, sweat beading on his forehead, even though the car isn't hot at all. Hazel's smile is too wide, too fake. Okay, I finally agree. Just don't take too long, and leave the keys so I can listen to the radio. Nigel hesitates, then leaves the keys in the ignition. Just don't turn the engine off. The battery's dying. I know how to handle a car, I replied dryly. I've been driving it since before you were born. They get out, run quickly through the rain to the motel porch, and disappear behind the door. I'm alone, listening to the sound of the rain and the engine running. The minutes drag on. I turn on the radio, but it only picks up noise and crackle. Apparently, we're too far away from the transmitters. I turn it off and just sit there, staring at the dreary motel building. Forest Silence. A fitting name for a place lost in the woods. I wonder who stays here. Tourists looking for solitude? Hunters? Or couples looking for discretion? I try to imagine who might run a place like this. Some eccentric old man, a nature lover, or a family for whom it's a legacy business. 5 minutes pass, then 10. Nigel and Hazel don't come back. I'm starting to get nervous. What could be taking them so long? Is the deli basket really that heavy? After 15 minutes, I decide to go and check. I turn off the ignition, grab my keys, and get out of the car. The rain has almost stopped, only a fine drizzle settling on my hair and clothes. I walk up to the motel. The old wooden porch creaks under my feet. The door is ajar, a dim light burning inside. I step inside. Nigel? Hazel, I call out, looking around. The small lobby is empty. A reception desk, a few shabby chairs, a table with some brochures. Quiet. Anybody here? I raise my voice. A woman of about 65, with gray hair and a sloppy bun, and a sharp studying gaze appears from behind the door. What can I do for you? She asks, looking me over. I'm looking for my son and his wife, I explain. They came in here about 15 minutes ago. A tall man about 45, and a woman with brown hair and a ponytail. The woman frowns. No one came in. What? I feel a chill go down my spine. That's impossible. I saw them come through that door. So they went out the back. She shrugs. There's an exit to the parking lot on the other side. I quickly walk back to the door and look out. The parking lot is empty. Nigel's car is gone. No, I whisper, not believing my eyes. It can't be. I run out onto the porch, ignoring the pain in my knee. The car is gone. They're gone. Gone, leaving me here in this God-forsaken place. A woman follows me out. Is something wrong? They're gone, I say, still unable to comprehend what has happened. My son and his wife left me here. Oh, she says it like it happens every day. Come back inside, don't get wet in the rain. We'll sort it out. I mechanically follow her back into the lobby. My knees buckle, and I sink into one of the shabby chairs. I can't get my head around it. Nigel, my son, my flesh and blood, just abandoned me? Like a worthless object? My name is Pearl, the woman says, taking a seat across from me. Pearl Higgins. This is my motel. Edgar Burroughs, I extend my hand automatically, still in shock. Former judge of the Wellington Superior Court. Judge, she shakes my hand. The handshake is firm, confident, impressive. Why do you think your family decided to keep you here? I shake my head. I don't know, yeah. I don't understand. We were just going on a picnic to Lake Taupo. They said they wanted to pick up some delicacies for the picnic, but instead they dropped you off in the middle of nowhere, she finishes for me, in a place with no public transportation, minimal cell service, 2 hours away from the nearest major city. Her words sound like an indictment. I stare at her, and the reality of what's happening starts to hit me. This is not a mistake, not a misunderstanding. This was planned. Do you have a cell phone? I ask, reaching for mine. As expected, there's still no network. There's a landline. She nods at the machine on the counter. You can make a call. I get up, walk over to the phone, and dial Nigel's number. It rings, then goes to voicemail. I try again, same result. I try Hazel's number, straight to voicemail. They're not answering, I say, putting the receiver back. No wonder. Pearl crosses her arms over her chest. You know, you're not the first. What? Not the first elderly person to be left here by relatives, she explains with a bitter chuckle. You're the third in the last 5 years. Usually the pattern is the same. Drive somewhere, stop here on some pretext, and then, oops, the family disappears. The previous 2 were found and taken away by social services. Social services? I can't believe what I'm hearing. Like vagrants? Like street kids? Exactly. Usually the relatives then claim the old man suffers from dementia, ran away on his own, and they've been looking for him all over the country. I clench my fists so that my nails dig into my palms. The anger I feel is almost blinding. Nigel and Hazel didn't just abandon me. They planned it. All this time, all those strange looks, the whispers, the sudden caring. It was all a lie. I need to call someone else, I say, trying to gather my thoughts. I have friends, co-workers. Of course, Pearl nods. The phone is at your disposal, and while you're calling, I'll make tea. Or would you prefer something stronger? I've got a nice whiskey. Tea, please, I said. I need a clear head right now. She leaves for the kitchen and I pick up the phone again, going over in my mind the names of people who might be able to help. Most of my co-workers are as old as I am, many already dead. My friends are all but gone after Dorothy's death. I'm too withdrawn in my grief. Suddenly I think of Walter Lamb, a private detective with whom I've worked on several difficult cases. He's about 10 years younger than me, should still be on the force. I pull out an old business card from my wallet with his number on it and dial. 3 beeps, and then, Lamb here. Ah, Walter, I say, feeling incredibly relieved at the sound of a familiar voice. It's Edgar Burrows. Edgar? The surprise in his voice. How many years? How many winters? To what do I owe the honor? Walter, I have a problem, I say, trying to keep my voice steady. A serious problem. I'm sitting in a shabby chair at the Silent Forest Motel, clutching the phone receiver in my hand. Just finished talking to Walter. He promised to come, but the drive will take at least 2 hours. 2 hours alone with thoughts that are tearing me up inside. I can't believe this really happened. I can't accept that my own son, my own flesh and blood, left me here, like garbage, like an unwanted thing that they decided to get rid of. Your tea, Pearl sets a steaming mug in front of me. With honey. Real, local honey. Not the kind your relatives were talking about. Thank you, I replied mechanically, still not fully aware of what was happening. Pearl sits down across from me, holding her mug with both hands. She looks at me with an appraising gaze, not trying to hide her curiosity. Have you been able to contact anyone? She asks. Yes, an old acquaintance. He's coming to pick me up. That's good, so you're luckier than the others. I look up at her. You said I wasn't the first. What happened to the others? Pearl shrugs. Like I said, social services. One was taken into a nursing home. I don't know about the other. They didn't leave any contacts. And their families? The ones who abandoned them? As far as I know, no repercussions. Some said the grandfather suffered from senile dementia and ran away on his own. Others said the father insisted he be dropped off at a motel to meet an old friend. Who would they believe, a respected family or the old man's rambling stories? Her words make me wonder. Really, who will be believed? Nigel and Hazel are a respectable couple. He's a successful restoration specialist. She's an administrator at an insurance company. And me? An old man who's becoming more and more difficult, according to them. They've thought of everything, I say quietly. They've planned it all out. They usually do, Pearl nods. You know what the most disgusting thing is? It's not even a crime in the legal sense. They could say you wanted to stay here, and nothing would happen to them. I'm a former judge, I remind her. I know the law. So much the better for you, she takes a sip of her tea. Then you know how to turn it to your advantage. We are silent for a while. I sip my tea, feeling the hot liquid warming me from the inside. My mind slowly clears, and the shock is replaced by anger. The cold, calculating anger of a man who spent his life punishing those who broke the law. Why do people do this? I ask, thinking out loud rather than expecting an answer. Why do children betray their parents? Well, try now. Lots of reasons, Pearl leans back in her chair. Money most often, inheritance, real estate. Sometimes just fatigue from taking care of an elderly relative. Sometimes old grudges and a desire for revenge. And in your case, a house, I answer after a pause. I have a big house in a nice neighborhood in Wellington. I promised to sign it over to Nigel when I died. And you were in no hurry to die, Pearl concludes with a wry smile. Typical story. And also, I was a demanding father, I admit. Perhaps too demanding. Nigel always felt like he wasn't living up to my expectations. So he had emotional reasons for getting rid of you. I suppose so. And your sister-in-law? Hazel. I wonder. She's always been pragmatic, calculating. This must have been her idea. It usually is, Pearl nods. Daughters-in-law and sons-in-law are often the catalyst for such decisions. It's easier for them. It's not their own blood, after all. I look out the window at the empty parking lot, at the rain-wet trees surrounding the motel. The silence here is truly deafening. The perfect place to dump someone you don't want in your life anymore. You know, Pearl says after a long silence, you could just accept it. Find a new place to live. Start a new life. A lot of people do that. It's bitter, but it's safer. Accept betrayal? I shake my head. I've spent 42 years punishing people for their misdeeds, and now I'm supposed to just forgive? Not forgive. Accept it and move on. It's out of character, I replied firmly. Nigel and Hazel have to answer for what they've done. Pearl grinned. Revenge? At your age. Not revenge, justice. Whatever you say, Judge. She finishes her tea and stands up. I'll go make something to eat. You must be hungry. She goes into the kitchen, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I try to analyze the situation as I've done for years in the courtroom. The facts: my son and his wife planned and executed my… what? Kidnapping? No, more like forced eviction. They left me in a remote location with the expectation that I would not be able to return to Wellington on my own. What would have happened if I hadn't called Walter? Would they have reported my disappearance to the police? Would they have declared me suffering from dementia, unable to care for myself? I pull my wallet out of my pocket, checking the contents. $200 cash, credit card, driver's license. It's all there. At least they didn't rip me off completely. That's comforting, but only a little. Pearl returns with a plate of sandwiches and another mug of tea. Eat up, she says. You can't think about revenge on an empty stomach. I take a sandwich, take a bite. It's good, though I can barely taste it. All my thoughts are preoccupied with the betrayal and my possible reaction to it. Tell me about yourself, I ask Pearl. How did you end up owning a motel in the middle of nowhere? Oh, it's a long story. She sits down and puts her foot on her leg. Short version, I was married to an idiot who lost all his money and shot himself, leaving me with debts and this motel as my only asset. Tried to sell it for 20 years, but who wants a wreck in the woods? It just stayed that way. How's the business? What business? She snorts. 3 or 4 guests a month, mostly hunters and extreme hikers, plus couples who need a place where no one can find them. I live on my pension mostly. Why don't you sell and move to the city? Why would I? She shrugs. I like the quiet. I like to be away from people and their problems. Plus, I have cats. A whole gang of them. They're a problem in the city. I nod, understanding her point of view. After decades spent in the noise and chaos of human conflict, silence might be just what I need. And your friend, Pearl asks, the one who's coming to get you, is he reliable? More than reliable. I put the half-eaten sandwich on my plate. Walter Lamb is one of the best private investigators I've ever worked with. If anyone can help me with this situation, it's him. Okay. She looks at her watch. It's about an hour before he gets here. You want me to show you the motel? There's nothing to do anyway. I agree, and Pearl walks me through the building. The forest hush is bigger than I thought it would be. 12 rooms, a small restaurant, now closed, and even a small conference room, which Pearl says is sometimes rented for corporate retreats. Everything looks dated, but it's clean and well-maintained. Running it all by yourself, I ask? I have an assistant, a local girl who comes 3 times a week, but mostly, yes, by myself. We get back to the lobby just in time to hear the sound of a car pulling up. I look out the window and see a familiar black Ford. Walter hasn't changed his ways. He walks into the motel, shaking raindrops off his raincoat. He's tall, thin, with a streak of gray in his once red hair, but still alert and energetic despite his 65 years. Edgar, he held out his hand. I'd like to say I'm glad to see you, but the circumstances, not the most pleasant. Walter, I shake his hand. Thank you for coming. How could I not? After everything you did for me on the Carlson case? He turns his gaze to Pearl. And this must be the Good Samaritan you told me about. Pearl Higgins, I introduce myself. Owner of this haven for abandoned old men and unfaithful spouses. Charming, Walter smiled at the corner of his lips. Walter Lamb, private investigator. Former private investigator, actually. More of a counselor now. Why don't you have a seat? I suggested. Something to drink? Tea? Coffee? No, Edgar, let's just go. He glances at his watch. It's getting dark early, and it's a long drive. I nod, gathering my bag, which is still in the lobby. Before I leave, I turn to Pearl. How much do I owe you? For the food? For the help? Not at all, she said, waving her hand. Consider it my contribution to justice. Thank you, I say sincerely. You've been a great help to me. Just make your relatives regret what they did, she replies with the same wry grin. That would be the best thanks. Walter and I go outside. The rain has stopped, but the air is still damp and cool. Dusk is falling fast, and the woods around the motel seem even darker and more ominous than in the daytime. "What a place," Walter commented, opening the trunk of his Ford. "Perfect place for a crime. Or to get rid of an unwanted relative," I add, sitting down in the front passenger seat. Walter gets behind the wheel, starts the engine. "So your son and daughter-in-law just left you here?" "That's right. Said they needed to pick up something for the picnic. Left and, left. And you didn't suspect a thing?" It was weird, I admit. The whispers, the looks. But I didn't think they'd do anything like that. Walter pulls into the driveway, turns on his high beams. "People are capable of a lot of things when it comes to money or getting rid of problems. You know that better than I do." "I do," I nod. "I just never thought I'd be the victim of such betrayal." We drive in silence for a while. The road is narrow and winding, with a dark wall of forest on either side. I look out the window, but all I see is my reflection, the face of an old man with faded eyes. "Where are we going?" I finally ask. "My place," Walter answers. "I have an apartment in downtown Wellington. It's small, but it has a guest room. You can stay until we figure out what to do next." "Thank you," I say, feeling a lump come up in my throat. "I appreciate it." "You're welcome, man. You would have done the same thing." There's silence again. I try to collect my thoughts, but they scatter like scared rabbits. Too many emotions, too many unanswered questions. "What do you want to do, Edgar?" Walter asks, breaking the silence. "Toward your son and daughter-in-law?" "I want justice," I answer without thinking. "What kind of justice?" "I want them to answer for what they did. I want them to realize that you can't just throw a person out of your life like old furniture." "I understand," Walter nodded. "But how exactly do you want to do that, I wonder?" So far, I've been too shocked to think of a concrete plan of action. "I don't know," I admit honestly. "I don't know yet." "Well, we'll have time to talk about it." Walter turns on the windshield wipers. It's starting to rain again. "The important thing is that you're safe and you have options." "What options?" I ask, feeling bitter. "I'm 76 years old, Walter. I've just had my home, my family, everything I had taken away from me." "You still have friends," he reminds me, "and brains in your head. And that's more than most people have." I grin, feeling a surge of gratitude for this man who dropped everything and followed me out into the middle of nowhere without asking any questions. "Thank you, Walter. Really, thank you." "Don't mention it." He waves his hand. "No. Now, why don't you tell me more about your relationship with your son and daughter-in-law, so I can get a better understanding of the situation?" I spend the next hour and a half telling Walter everything. About Dorothy's death, about moving in with Nigel and Hazel, about the strained relationship that was getting worse every month, about the strange behavior I'd noticed lately, the house I'd promised to leave Nigel. "The house then," Walter nods as I finish the story. "Classic motive. They didn't want to wait for you to go natural." "I guess so," I agree. "But that's not all. I think Nigel held a grudge against me for years. I was not the easiest father. None of us are perfect, Edgar, but that doesn't excuse what they did." "Of course it doesn't." I glance at the lights of oncoming cars passing by. "We're already on the main highway. I'm just trying to understand the motives." "Motives are important," Walter agrees. "Huh, but what's more important is what you're going to do now." We get into Wellington around 9 o'clock at night. The city's lights are shining, so familiar and yet, now, so foreign. Somewhere out there in the Karori neighborhood, in a big house overlooking the bay, my son and his wife are probably celebrating my disappearance from their lives. Walter lives in a modern apartment building near the waterfront. His sixth-floor apartment is spacious, minimally furnished, but cozy. Large windows look out over the bay, overlooking the twinkling lights of the city. "Make yourself comfortable," he says, showing me to the guest room. "Bathroom's over there. Kitchen, you know where it is. Make yourself at home." "Thanks again." I set the valise on the bed. "No need," he waves his hand. "Are you hungry?" "Not really," I answer honestly. "Pearl fed me sandwiches." "Then how about a drink? I have a nice scotch." "I'd love one." We sit in the living room sipping whiskey and looking out over Wellington at night. The city I've known all my life seems different now. Less friendly, more alien. So, Walter says after a long silence, what's the plan? I think, I start, then take a sip of whiskey, feeling the liquid fire go down my throat. I think I want to teach Nigel and Hazel a lesson. Show them that you can't just get rid of me. How exactly? Legally, of course, I clarify. I won't stoop to their level. But I want them to feel what I feel. Fear, uncertainty, betrayal. Walter twirls the glass thoughtfully in his hands. I have an idea, he says finally, but you might not like it. I'm listening. We could fake some signs of violence. What? Think about it, Walter leans forward. Your son and daughter-in-law abandoned you in the middle of nowhere, counting on you not coming back. What if we turn that against them? What if you claim they didn't just abandon you? They beat you and left you for dead. I look at him in surprise. That's a false accusation. I've spent 40 years fighting this kind of thing in court. Technically, yes, Walter agrees. But think of the results. Your son and daughter-in-law's reputations will be destroyed. They might even be arrested during the investigation. They'll experience the same fear and uncertainty you're experiencing today. I remain silent, mulling over his words. Part of me resents the idea. I've spent my whole life standing up for the law, and now I'm supposed to break it? But the other part, the part that's still shaking from shock and betrayal, finds the idea seductive. How would it work practically, I finally ask. Walter smiles. I know people who can help with makeup. Make it look like bruises, abrasions. I have a doctor friend who could issue a medical certificate. We'll take photos of the injuries. File a police report. What if they just say I'm lying? Word against word. But you're a respected retired judge with an impeccable reputation. They're a couple who drove to the middle of nowhere with their elderly father and lost him. Who has a better chance of credibility? I sigh, feeling two people struggling inside. Judge Barrows, who has spent his life standing up for the law, and Edgar, betrayed by his own son. I don't know, Walter. It's, against everything I believed in. I understand, he nods, and I respect that. But sometimes justice requires, unconventional solutions, especially when the usual methods won't work. I need to think about it, I say, finishing my whiskey. This is a big decision. Of course, Walter agrees. There's plenty of time. Your son and daughter-in-law don't even know you've gotten out of the wilderness yet. We sit for a while longer, discussing the details of a possible plan. The more we talk, the more real and feasible the idea seems to me. Yes, it's against my principles, but wasn't what Nigel and Hazel did against every principle of family and humanity? All right, I say at last. Let's do it. Are you sure? Walter looks at me carefully. There's no turning back. Sure, I nod, feeling the resolve building inside me. They have to realize that there are consequences for doing things like this. Then let's get started. Walter raises his glass in a toast. To justice, however difficult it may be. To justice, I repeat, toasting him. Outside the window, Wellington shines with lights, indifferent to small human dramas. But soon, very soon, my son and his wife learn that the old judge is not so easily written off. The morning in Walter's apartment greets me with the smell of fresh coffee and the sounds of the city coming from the street. I wake up with a clear head and a firm resolve. The plan that seemed questionable the night before looks like the only possible solution in the light of day. How did you sleep? Walter asked when I come into the kitchen. Surprisingly well, considering the circumstances, I reply, taking a cup of coffee from him. You're up early. Habit, he shrugs. I've got a lot to do. I've already called Maggie. Maggie? She's a friend of mine who works at the theater as a makeup artist. She'll be here in an hour to help us with your injuries. I nod, sipping my coffee. Strong, black, no sugar. Walter remembers my preference even after all these years. I also called Dr. Rayner, he continues. Remember him? Forensic scientist, worked with us on the Greenwood case. I remember, I nod. He's reliable. He's agreed to help. He'll write a medical report to confirm your injuries. He's not afraid to risk his license? Technically nothing illegal. He's just describing what he sees. And what he sees is the work of a professional makeup artist. Walter winks at me. You can't draw a clear line between real and fake bruises in pictures. We eat breakfast in silence. I ponder my upcoming meeting with Nigel and Hazel, the look on their faces when they see me alive, unharmed and ready to hold them accountable. At 9 sharp, the doorbell rings. Walter lets in a petite woman in her 50s with bright red hair and a large professional bag in her hands. Maggie, Walter introduces us. This is Judge Burroughs, the one I told you about. Edgar, this is Maggie Clancy, Wellington's top theatrical makeup artist. Nice to meet you. She shakes my hand with a firm, confident handshake. Walter explains the situation. It's despicable what's been done to you, Judge. Thanks for your help, I reply, a little embarrassed by her directness. Well, Maggie sets the bag on the table and opens it, revealing an impressive arsenal of makeup supplies. Let's get started. What kind of injuries are we faking? I was thinking a bruise on the cheekbone, says Walter. Maybe an abrasion on his forehead and marks on his neck like he was strangled. Maggie studies my face. You could add a slight hematoma under his eye and a busted lip. What do you think? Sounds convincing. I nod, feeling a little nervous. Good. Sit here, closer to the light. I spend the next hour obeying Maggie's instructions as she applies makeup to my face and neck with surgical precision. She works silently, concentrating, only occasionally asking me to turn my head or bend over. Walter watches, occasionally taking photos to document the process. Here, she says at last, holding out a mirror to me. What do you think? I look at my reflection and don't recognize myself. My right cheekbone is swollen and covered with a dark purple bruise. There's a yellowish-blue stain under my eye. There's an abrasion on my forehead with dried blood. My lip is split, and there are distinct finger marks on my neck, as if someone had tried to strangle me. God, I breathe out. That's way impressive. Professional, Walter nods respectfully. Maggie, you've outdone yourself. It's a routine job, she shrugs, but I can tell she's happy with the result. The key now is to keep your hands off your face and not to get it wet. The makeup will last about 12 hours, then it will start to crumble. If you need a refresh, call. She leaves us a small kit to maintain the effect and leaves, refusing the offered coffee. She has a rehearsal in an hour. So, Walter says when we're alone, now to see Dr. Rayner. Yes, I nod. The sooner the better. Dr. Miles Rayner sees us in his office at the medical center near the waterfront. He's aged since the last time I saw him. His hair is completely gray, and there are new wrinkles, but his gaze is still as sharp and attentive. Judge Burroughs, he shakes my hand. You look awful, if I may say so. That was the purpose, I reply with a slight smile that makes my fake busted lip tighten unpleasantly. Walter explained the situation, Dr. Rayner says, pointing me to the couch. I have to say, what your relatives did is disgusting. I'm happy to help. He does a thorough examination, dictating observations into a small tape recorder. Hematoma in the area of the right zygomatic bone. Finger marks on the neck, upper lip dissection, then takes a few photos with a professional camera with a ring flash. Nice work, he says, finishing his examination. If I didn't know it was makeup, I could have sworn you were really beaten up. Is that good or bad? I ask. In this case, he smiles. Definitely good. I'll have a medical report ready by tonight. Walter will know where to direct it. We are back at Walter's apartment by lunchtime. I feel a strange mixture of emotions. Determination, excitement, but also a slight prick of conscience. All my life I've fought for the truth in the courtroom, and now I'm participating in an elaborate deception. But don't Nigel and Hazel deserve it? Isn't their betrayal worse than any lie? What's on your mind? Walter asks, warming the soup on the stove. About the morality of it all, I confess. I can't help feeling that I'm crossing a line. Walter turns to me. Listen, Edgar, I've known you for almost 30 years. You're the most principled and honest man I've ever met. If you have any doubts, we can call the whole thing off. I look out the window at the bay, at the ships gliding across the dark water. I remember the cold fear when I realized Nigel and Hazel had abandoned me. I remember their quiet conversations behind my back, their stares, planning my disappearance. No, I say firmly, let's keep going. They need to realize that there are consequences to such actions. Walter nods. Okay, then we'll drive to your house this afternoon. I think a direct confrontation will be most effective. We have a lunch of soup and bread, discussing the details of the upcoming meeting. I rehearse what I will say to Nigel and Hazel. Every word, every intonation. Walter gives advice based on his experience interrogating suspects. The most important thing is to keep them in the dark, he says. You have to seize the initiative from the first second and never let go. I understand, I nod. Like in cross-examination, don't give the witness time to come up with a lie. Exactly, and remember, you have the moral high ground. They're the guilty party. You're the victim. Use that. After lunch, we drive to my house. Well, the house that was mine yesterday. It's a strange feeling to return there in a new capacity, not as a host, but as, what? Accuser? Avenger? Walter parks on the street a few houses down from ours. Nigel's car is there, he notes. So they're home. Okay, I take a deep breath. I'm ready. I'll wait here, Walter says. If anything goes wrong, just get out. I'll be right behind you. I nod, get out of the car, and walk toward the house. With each step, the resolve inside me grows stronger. They thought they were rid of me, that I would disappear into some nursing home or hospital, far away from them and their plans for my house. They were wrong. I stand in front of the door, gathering my thoughts. Then with determination, I press the bell. Once, twice, a third time, insistently, demandingly. I hear footsteps outside the door. Then Hazel's voice. I'm coming. I'm coming. Who is it? I don't answer. I press the bell again. Finally, the door opens. Hazel stands on the threshold, irritated by the insistence of an unknown visitor. She looks at me, and her face changes in slow motion, from annoyance to bewilderment, then to shock, and finally to horror. Edgar, she exhales, taking a step back. But how? We thought that I was missing? I take a step forward, stepping into the house. That I'd be found in a ditch somewhere? Or not found at all? No, no, no. We've been looking for you. Sir, she stammered, her face paling even more when she saw the bruises and abrasions on my face. My God, what happened to you? Ask your husband, I answer coldly. Where is he, by the way? Nigel, she shouts, retreating into the back of the house. Nigel, come here. I hear hurried footsteps, and my son appears in the hall. He freezes when he sees me, and his face, too, runs the gamut from disbelief to horror. Dad? His voice trails off. But how? What happened to you? Didn't expect it? I take another step forward, forcing them back into the living room. Thought you were rid of me for good. What are you talking about? Nigel tries to keep his composure, but his voice shakes. We looked everywhere for you. We were even going to the police. Liar, I say quietly, but with such conviction that he stops talking halfway through. You've always been a bad liar, Nigel. Even as a child, you couldn't lie without blushing. I walk into the living room, sit down in my chair, the same one I've spent so many evenings in, reading or looking out the window at the bay. They remain standing, as if hesitant to sit in my presence. Listen, Dad, Nigel begins. I don't know what happened or why you think we wanted to get rid of you, but there's been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I grin, wincing at the pain in my falsely split lip. You brought me to an abandoned motel in the middle of the woods, told me you needed to pick something up, and then you got in your car and drove away. Is that what you think this is, a misunderstanding? We didn't leave, Hazel intervenes. We went into the motel, and when we came out, you weren't in the car. We looked everywhere for you. Another lie, I shake my head. I saw you drive away, with my own eyes. No, Nigel shakes his head. We didn't leave. I swear. We thought you followed us or lost somewhere. And that's why you came home? I raise an eyebrow. Instead of looking for me? We were looking, Hazel exclaims, her voice higher with excitement. We searched the whole motel, the whole area around it. Then we drove to the nearest town, asking everyone we met. Nobody saw you. I look at the two of them, their frightened faces, their helpless gestures. Are they good actors? Or do they really believe their version of events? And these bruises, I'm pointing at my face, also a misunderstanding. How? Nigel stammered, his eyes widening. You think we're God, no. We would never. When I came out of the motel, I was met by two men, I say, following my prepared story. They said you paid them to take care of me. Make sure I didn't come back. What? Hazel puts her hand to her mouth. This is insane. We didn't hire anyone. Yeah, Nigel picks up on that. Dad, I swear, we would never do anything like this. You know us. I thought I did, I answer quietly. I thought I knew my own son. But yesterday, I rethought a lot of things. What happened to you? Nigel takes a step toward me, but I raise my hand, stopping him. Stay back. I was lucky. A hunter came by, scared off my attackers. Picked me up, took me to the hospital. We should call the police, Hazel says. Find these people. Oh, the police already know, I smile, enjoying the look of panic on their faces. I went to see them this morning, gave a statement, showed them the medical report on the injuries. But we didn't, Nigel stammered. We had nothing to do with it. We didn't? I'm leaning forward. Then why did you leave me in that motel? Why drove me to the middle of nowhere if you just wanted to go to the lake? Why didn't you really look for me? Why didn't you call the hospitals, file a missing persons report? Why didn't they call that motel to see if anyone had seen me there? They are silent, exchanging confused looks. I see fear, confusion, and something else in their eyes. Guilt? A realization that their plan has gone wrong? Your life is going to be a nightmare now, I say, rising from my chair. You committed the crime of leaving a helpless old man to die, and now you have to answer for it. No, Dad, please. Nigel takes a step toward me. Let's talk. This is some kind of terrible misunderstanding. We love you. We would never. Don't you dare talk about love. I cut him off. I saw you leave, with my own eyes. I saw the car go around the corner, leaving me alone in the middle of nowhere, with no communication, no transportation. How do you explain that? Yeah, I don't know. Nigel looks completely confused. Maybe you saw another car? Or maybe you imagined it. Out in the middle of nowhere where there's only one road and not a soul? I shake my head. Don't try to get away with this, Nigel. You won't make it. What are you going to do? Hazel asks, her voice trembling. I already have, I answer calmly. The police report has been filed. The medical exam has been done. Now it's up to law enforcement. But we're innocent, Nigel exclaims. Dad, you're a judge. You have to believe in the presumption of innocence. So, presumption of innocence is for the court. I head for the exit. I only came back for my stuff. You're leaving? Nigel's voice sounds panicked. Where are you going? None of your business, I answer coldly. I don't consider this house my home anymore, and I don't consider you my family. Edgar, please, Hazel comes toward me. Let's talk this through. There's been a misunderstanding. It was a misunderstanding to consider you family. I open the door. I'll be back for my things later, with a police escort. In the meantime, enjoy your last few hours of peace. Your life is about to change, and not for the better. I walk out without looking back, leaving them in a daze. I walk to Walter's car, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Satisfaction at their shock and fear, but also bitterness at the realization that my family is truly destroyed, finally and irrevocably. Walter waits for me in the car, tapping his fingers nervously on the steering wheel. Well, he asks when I sit down next to him. How'd it go? Exactly as we planned, I answer, buckling up. They're in shock, scared, confused. In denial? Of course, I grin. They say they were looking for me, that it was a misunderstanding. And you believe them? I hesitate for a moment. There was such sincerity in Nigel's voice. But no, I saw them leave, with my own eyes. No, I answer firmly. I don't believe it. Then we'll proceed as planned. Walter starts the engine. To the police. The police? I nod, looking at the house I no longer consider my own. Make them pay for what they did. We drive away, and I don't look back. A new chapter of my life lies ahead. A chapter in which there is no room for traitors, even if they bear your last name. I know the Wellington police station like the back of my hand. I have been here hundreds of times in my years of judicial practice, testifying, counseling, attending meetings. Now, however, I come here in a new capacity as a victim. Judge Burroughs, exclaims the desk sergeant as Walter and I enter the station. My God, what happened to you? Long story, Harris, I reply, recognizing the young officer. I need to file a report. Of course, sir. He points to a door at the back of the room. Inspector Murphy's free right now. He'll be glad to see you, even under these circumstances. We walk into the inspector's office. Kevin Murphy is a stout man in his 50s with a tired face and shrewd eyes. He jumps up when he sees my battered face. Judge, what the hell happened? Family matters have taken a nasty turn, I reply, sitting down in the offered chair. Walter remains standing behind me. Tell me. Murphy pulls out a notebook and a pen. I outline the story I'd prepared. A trip with my son and daughter-in-law, a stop at a motel, their disappearance. Then the attack by two unknown men who supposedly said they'd been paid to take care of me. I mentioned the supposed hunter who rescued me and took me to the hospital. Walter stands behind me, silently confirming the story with his presence. And you think your son and his wife hired these people to get rid of you? Murphy looks incredulous. I don't have any other explanation, I throw up my hands. Why else would you drive a 76-year-old father out into the middle of nowhere and leave him there? Maybe there really is a misunderstanding, the inspector suggests. People sometimes get lost, especially at an advanced age. Inspector? I look him straight in the eye. I spent 42 years passing sentences in the Supreme Court. Do you really think I can't tell the difference between a misunderstanding and a deliberate act? Murphy sighs. No, of course not. It's just, these are serious charges. Your son could get real time. I realize that, I nod. Believe me, it's not easy for me to accuse my own son. But the truth trumps family ties. Walter coughs. We have a medical report confirming the injuries. Dr. Rayner wrote it. Miles Rayner? Murphy's eyebrows rise. A respected specialist. You sure no? Here's the report, Walter hands over a folder, and the photographs. Murphy looks through the documents, his face growing more and more serious. It does look convincing, he says finally. We'll investigate. We'll question your son and his wife, find witnesses. Thank you, Inspector, I stand up. I trust your professionalism. Where are you staying now, Judge? Murphy asks. Just in case. My place, Walter replies. I've given Judge Burroughs the guest room until the situation is cleared up. Good, the inspector nods. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. We leave the station on a quiet fall morning. A light rain is drizzling, typical of Wellington at this time of year. Here we go, Walter says, opening the umbrella over both of us. It's a mess. How are you feeling? Strange, I admit, like I've crossed a line beyond which there's no going back. You can still stop, Walter reminds me. You can say it was a mistake, that you imagined it because of the stress. I shake my head. No, they deserve this lesson. Let them feel what it's like to be abandoned, helpless, scared. Whatever you say, Walter doesn't argue. Let's go get some coffee, shall we? You've had a rough day. We spend the rest of the day in a small cafe near the waterfront. I watch people going about their business in the rain and think about how quickly life can change. Just the day before yesterday, I had a home, a family, an established routine. Today, I'm a homeless old man living with a friend and blaming my own son for the crime. That evening, we go back to Walter's apartment. We sit in the living room, sipping whiskey and watching the news. Nothing about our case, of course. It's too early. But soon, I'm sure the local media will pick up the story. Respected retired judge accuses son and daughter-in-law of attempted murder is too juicy a topic to ignore. A call from Inspector Murphy comes the next morning. He reports that he has questioned Nigel and Hazel, and they categorically deny all the accusations. They claim that they were looking for me, that they never left the motel grounds, that it's all some terrible misunderstanding. Of course they deny it, I say, not hiding my sarcasm. What else can they say? We're still investigating, Murphy replies. Officers are going to that motel today, interviewing the owner and possible witnesses. So, great, I smile, though he can't see it. Pearl Higgins, the owner of the motel, will corroborate my story. After the conversation, I catch Walter's pensive look. What? I ask. Are you sure this pearl will corroborate your story? She and I haven't discussed the details. She hates people who abandon their elders. Said I'm the third case in recent years. She's on our side. I hope so. Walter doesn't look completely convinced. At noon, the phone rings. It's an unfamiliar number, but I answer it. Edgar Burrows speaking. Dad, Nigel's voice sounds desperate. Please talk to me. This is crazy. We have nothing to talk about, I answer coldly. We've had police officers. They questioned us for hours. They say we tried to kill you. That's absurd. The truth often seems absurd to those who are used to lying. Dad, I swear we didn't do it. We didn't leave. We were looking for you. Just tell the police it was a misunderstanding and we'll forget the whole thing. We'll start over. A fresh start? I can't hold back a bitter laugh. After you left me to die in the middle of nowhere? After you hired men to make sure I didn't come back? No! Nigel's voice sounded truly desperate. We did no such thing. I swear on my life. Goodbye, Nigel, I end the call. Walter looks at me questioningly. Your son? Yes. I tuck the phone into my pocket. Panicking. Not surprising. If the attempted murder charge holds up, they're looking at up to 15 years. They won't get 15, I wave it away. 2 or 3 years tops, considering I'm alive and not seriously injured. You sound like a judge, Walter said with a slight smile. I am a judge, and I shrug. A former one, but still. At 6 p.m., the local news opens with a story about us. Shocking crime in Wellington, the anchor announces with a serious face. Former Supreme Court judge accuses his own son and daughter-in-law of attempted murder. I watch the report with a dual feeling of satisfaction and a strange sadness. The reporters quote police sources, show pictures of my house, talk about my career. They mention indisputable evidence and the medical opinion of a respected expert. Nigel and Hazel declined to comment, which, according to the journalists, only serves to heighten suspicion. That's it, I say as the report ends. Now their reputations are ruined. Even if they avoid jail, people will remember the case. Is this what you wanted? Walter asked quietly. I hesitate. I wanted them to realize that you can't just throw a person out of your life without consequences. I think they understand now. The next day, the story unfolds with renewed vigor. The morning papers are full of headlines. Family betrayal. Son versus father. Shocking accusation. My picture, from the archives, from my days as a judge, is on the front page. Nigel and Hazel were also caught in the lenses. The paparazzi spotted them outside their home. An acquaintance from social services, with whom I crossed paths through work, calls to express her support. Nigel and Hazel's neighbors, she says, are in shock. No one can believe that such a decent couple would do something like this. Reputation is a fragile thing, she says, especially in a small town. It'll be hard for them to recover, even if the allegations don't stick. Yeah, I agree. Why people remember accusations, not excuses. Walter listens intently to my conversation. When I finish, he asks, any regrets? Regret what? That I started this whole thing. Their lives are ruined. I look out the window at the bay, at the ships gliding across the gray water. They ruined my life first, I say, but an inner voice whispers, did they really? Or did you just get it wrong? In the evening, the news arrives. Nigel has been suspended from work pending the outcome of the investigation. The construction company where he worked doesn't want to be associated with the scandal. Hazel has taken sick leave, but according to people who know her, her days at the insurance company are numbered too. They've ruined our reputation, says Nigel in a telephone interview that is shown on the evening news. People who have known us for years are now turning away. Neighbors don't say hello. Friends won't return our calls. All because of false accusations. False? The reporter wants to be more specific. You're saying you didn't leave your father at that motel? We stopped there on the way to the lake. We went inside for about 15 minutes, and when we came back, he wasn't in the car. We looked for him for hours. We asked around. This is a terrible misunderstanding. How do you explain his injuries? Nigel looks confused. I don't know. We didn't touch him. We would never raise a hand to my father. I don't understand where these bruises and abrasions are coming from. Maybe he fell, or, I just don't know. I'm turning off the TV. Nigel's always been a bad liar, but now he seems sincere, really sincere. A good actor, I comment. I almost believe it. Yes, Walter agreed, but I could hear the doubt in his voice. The next day, Inspector Murphy calls again. Judge, we need you to come down to the station. There are new circumstances. What circumstances? I ask, feeling my heart start to beat faster. I'd prefer to discuss it in person, he replies. When can you get here? In an hour, I say, glancing over at Walter. We arrive at the station at exactly the right time. Inspector Murphy meets us in his office. He has an expression on his face that I know well from my time as a judge. It's the look of a man about to deliver unpleasant news. Judge, he begins as we sit down, we've interviewed the owner of the Forest Hush Motel, Mrs. Higgins. I try to sound calm. She confirmed that you were left there, but said she didn't see any attack. What's more, she claims your son and daughter-in-law were actually looking for you, searching the entire motel, interviewing other guests. They were in a panic. I feel a chill go down my spine. Why did Pearl say that? Why didn't she support my story? They could have just been making it look like it, I suggest, building an alibi. Maybe, Murphy nods. But there's more to it than that. We got a surveillance tape from a gas station 10 miles from the motel. It captured your son's car about 20 minutes after you claimed they abandoned you. The video shows them filling up a can of gasoline. The gas station owner confirmed it. They said they needed gas for a guest at the Forest Hush Motel whose car had stalled. I remained silent, trying to comprehend the information. Was I wrong? Was the car I saw driving away not theirs? It doesn't change the fact that they left me there, I say, but my voice sounds uncertain. Judge, Murphy looks at me sympathetically. There's something else. Our medical examiner has reviewed the photographs of your injuries in Dr. Rayner's report. He believes that the injuries aren't real. What? I'm faking outrage. He thinks it's makeup, Murphy continues. Professionally applied, but still makeup. We'd like to re-examine. I look at Walter for support, but he just shrugs. Game's over. Judge Burroughs, Murphy's voice grows sterner. If you made false accusations against your son and daughter-in-law, that's a serious offense. I urge you to reconsider your position. I sit with my head down. The plan that seems so perfect is crumbling before my eyes. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is the realization that maybe I really was wrong. Maybe Nigel and Hazel didn't abandon me. Maybe this is all a terrible misunderstanding, compounded by my desire for revenge. Yeah, I need to think about it, I say finally. Sure, Murphy nods. But don't take too long. This is a serious situation. We leave the station in silence. Walter opens the car door, but he doesn't get in. What are you going to do? And he asks. I look out at the gray Wellington sky, at the people going about their business. I don't know, I confess. I really don't. 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in a small cafe in downtown Wellington, sipping coffee and reading the morning paper. On page 3 is a small note about the case against Nigel and Hazel. Investigation continues. New facts, conflicting testimony. No longer on the front page as in the early days, but still in the public eye. I fold the paper and look out the window. Rain, typical of Wellington, is drumming on the glass, creating a soothing rhythm. People rush about their business, hiding under umbrellas, running from one shelter to another. I have nowhere else to rush. After my meeting with Inspector Murphy, I decided not to back down. Yes, my injuries were under suspicion, but I insisted on my version. Nigel and Hazel had left me at the motel, and that was a fact that Pearl confirmed. And as for the attack, I may have exaggerated. Perhaps the injuries are not as serious as I originally stated. Stress, age, poor lighting, all of which may have distorted my perception. But the fact remains that they left me behind. Murphy wasn't entirely convinced, but he didn't close the case. The investigation continues, albeit with less intensity. Nigel and Hazel are still under suspicion, their reputations ruined, their lives turned into a nightmare. Exactly what I wanted. I finish my coffee and walk outside, opening my umbrella. I'm meeting with a realtor today, looking at a small apartment near the waterfront. Walter found it through his contacts, a one-bedroom apartment with a terrace and a view of the bay. Not as luxurious as my old house, but it's good enough for a lonely old man. Judge Burroughs? A voice behind me makes me turn around. A middle-aged woman, umbrella in hand and file under her arm, looks at me with a professional smile. Yes, that's me, I reply, shaking her outstretched hand. Sarah Jenkins, Wellington Homes Real Estate Agency. We had an appointment. The apartment's 2 blocks from here, and we can walk if that's okay. That's fine, I nodded. A little walk wouldn't hurt me. We walked through the wet streets, Sarah talking about the neighborhood, the proximity of stores and public transportation, the views from the terrace. I listened half-heartedly, observing the city I've known all my life, but which now I'll have to get to know anew, from a different perspective, from a different house, with a different status. The apartment turns out to be exactly as Walter described, bright, spacious, with a minimum of furniture and a maximum of functionality. Large windows, a really nice view of the bay. A terrace, small, but enough for a table and a couple of chairs. I like it, I say, having finished looking around. How long will it take to check out? With all the paperwork and prepayment, 2 or 3 days, Sarah says. You can move in next weekend. Great, I nod. Let's get started. We go back to the agency's office, where I sign the lease and make the first payment. Some of it from my account, some from the cash I've always kept for a rainy day. The rainy day has come, though not in the way I expected. Walter meets me at his apartment with a bottle of good whiskey. Congratulations on the housewarming. He raises his glass. Even if it's a future one. Thank you. I salute with my glass. And for helping me find an apartment too. It's perfect. Always happy to help. He takes a sip. How are you feeling? Strange, I admit. On the one hand, I've lost my home, my family, everything that seems stable and unchanging. On the other, I feel a kind of liberation, like a weight has been lifted. I understand, Walter nodded. Sometimes loss can be the beginning of something new. Philosopher, I chuckle. How's the investigation going? Have you heard anything from your former colleagues? Walter thinks for a moment. The police are still interviewing witnesses. They're looking for the 2 men who allegedly attacked you, and the hunter who saved you. Which don't exist, I add. Exactly. Sooner or later they'll realize that. But for now the investigation is ongoing, and Nigel and Hazel remain under suspicion. Sano. Good. I take another sip of whiskey, feeling the warmth spread through my body. Let them suffer a little longer. The next few days are spent preparing for the move. I take personal belongings from the old house, books, clothes, photos, a few pieces of furniture. Nigel and Hazel are absent, gone on purpose to avoid seeing each other. That makes it easy to do. Saturday, I finally move into the new apartment. Walter helps with the transportation of things. Then together we arrange the furniture, arrange the books on the shelves, hang pictures. By late afternoon, the apartment is starting to look settled. Here we are. Walter looks at the result of our work. It really looks like a home now. Yes, I agree, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Thanks for your help. You're welcome. He pats me on the shoulder. I'll leave you to settle in. Call me if you need anything. After Walter leaves, I go out on the terrace with a glass of whiskey. I watch the sunset over the bay, pondering the strange twists and turns of fate. Until a month ago, I was an honorable father of a family, living in a big house, with a certain status and reputation. Now I'm a lonely old man living in a rented apartment, involved in a scandalous investigation. And yet I feel, freer, lighter, like I've shed the mask I've worn for years. The phone rings, interrupting my thoughts. It's an unfamiliar number. Edgar Burroughs here, I answered. Dad. Nigel's voice sounds tired and strained. I know you've moved. We found a note with a new address. Yes, I confirm. It's a rented apartment. Nothing fancy, but it's good enough for one. Listen, he takes a deep breath. Hazel and I want to talk. In person. It's important. We have nothing to talk about, I reply coldly. It's all said and done. Please, I hear the desperation in his voice. We're on the brink. Hazel has lost her job. I've been suspended, probably will be fired. Neighbors won't talk to us. Friends have turned their backs, all because of the accusations you made. You brought this on yourself. My voice is hard. When you decided to leave me at that motel. We didn't abandon you, his voice breaks. I swear on my life. Please, just tell the police it was a misunderstanding, that you made a mistake. We'll do whatever you want. The house? It's yours. You want us to leave Wellington? We will. I'll think about it, I finally say. But I'm not promising anything. I end the call and go back to watching the sunset. Nigel's words roll around in my head. His despair sounds genuine. What if I really was wrong? What if this whole thing was a misunderstanding? No, I saw their car drive away. I saw it with my own eyes. Pearl calls this evening. Judge, how are you? Not bad, considering the circumstances, I said. And you? The police didn't bother you again? They came again, she says. They asked me more about that day. I said you were at my place, that you were upset, that you left with a friend. Nothing too much. Thank you. I feel sincere gratitude. You've been very helpful. You're welcome. I can hear the chuckle in her voice. I'm going into town next week. Why don't you meet me? Have some coffee? I'd love to, I said, surprised by the offer. Sunday I meet Pearl. We sit in a coffee shop near my new apartment, talking about nothing. The weather, the city, her motel. You know, she says, stirring her coffee, your son was really looking for you. They were both in a panic. I look at her in surprise. You think so? I saw, she shrugs. They searched the entire motel, asking everyone. They called the next day, asking if you were back. And you told them that I hadn't seen you. Pearl looked me right in the eye. I don't know why I lied. Maybe because I liked you. Maybe because I really hate people who abandon their elders. Or maybe I just don't like to pry. Her words make me wonder. What if Nigel is telling the truth? What if they really didn't abandon me? The next week passes in establishing a new routine. I settle into the apartment, getting to know the neighbors, exploring the neighborhood. The investigation continues, but without much enthusiasm from the police. Nigel and Hazel still live under the shadow of suspicion, their reputations ruined. I should feel satisfied that my plan has worked, but instead I find myself increasingly doubtful. On Wednesday night, I speak to Nigel on the phone again. He begs for a meeting, for a chance to explain everything. I agree to meet on Friday at my house. At exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Nigel rings the doorbell. He looks gaunt, aged. His eyes are a mixture of hope and fear. Ha ha ha. Come in. I point to the terrace. We can talk there. We sit down at a small table. Wellington stretches out before us, drenched in the afternoon sun. A rare, clear day in a city known for its wind and rain. Beautiful view, Nigel commented, trying to start a conversation. Yes, I agreed. One of the advantages of this apartment. There was an awkward silence. Finally, I decided. Tell me again what happened that day at the motel. The whole truth. Nigel sighed deeply. We stopped at the Forest Hush, just as we'd planned. One of the guests, his car was parked next to ours, and he asked for help. He was out of gas. We agreed, went into the motel to find out where the nearest gas station was. The hostess said it was 15 minutes down the highway. We asked you to wait in the car while we drove down. Whose car did you drive? His, Nigel answered. He had a canister in the trunk. We didn't. A blue Subaru, almost identical to ours. I remember seeing a blue Subaru driving away from the motel. Maybe it really was a different car. When we got back, you weren't in the car, Nigel continued. We looked for you everywhere. In the motel, around the neighborhood, asking everyone we met. We were in a panic. We decided to go back to town, thinking you might have hitched a ride or a bus. Called the motel the next day, asking about you. I look out at the bay, at the ships gliding across the water. The more I listen, the more I believe Nigel is telling the truth. That this whole story of betrayal and revenge was based on a misunderstanding, compounded by my fears and suspicions. Dad? Nigel looks at me with pain in his eyes. Please tell the police that it was a misunderstanding, that you were mistaken, so that there was no attack. Our lives are ruined. We could lose everything. I'm silent for a long time, looking at the city below. Then I make a decision. Okay, I'll talk to the police. I'll tell them I was wrong, that the stress and fear made it seem different. The relief on Nigel's face is almost palpable. Thank you, Dad. Really, thank you. Don't thank me, I shook my head. I'm the one who should be apologizing. For not believing you. For causing you so much pain. You thought we betrayed you, Nigel says quietly. And you wanted justice. I can't blame you for that. We talked for a long time about everything. The past, the future, how to rebuild relationships. Nigel leaves in the evening, promising to stop by tomorrow to go to the police together. I'm alone on the terrace, watching the last rays of sunlight color the bay in golden hues. A strange feeling overwhelms me, a mixture of shame at what I've done and relief at the realization that my son didn't betray me. Betrayal is the one thing I could never forgive. All my life I feared it more than anything, saw signs of it where there were none. And in the end, I betrayed those closest to me by doubting their love, by accusing them of things they didn't do. But maybe it's not too late to make things right. Maybe admitting my mistake will be the first step to rebuilding trust, to regaining the family I thought I had lost. I look out at the sunset, and for the first time in a long time, I feel hope. Hope that even at 76, it's not too late to learn to trust, not too late to start over. It's not too late to forgive and maybe be forgiven.